Class. My name is Shannon Maloney, and together with Emily, Leo, and Charlene, we decided to present to you the topic of sexual harassment. To begin, we first found out the definition of what sexual harassment is and what it consists of. We found that there is no universal definition, but many definitions seem to say the same thing. For instance, in an article that we read, the Australian Human Rights Commission defines sexual harassment as an uninvited or unwelcome sexual advance, request for sexual favors, or unwelcome sexual conduct that offends, intimidates, or humiliates the individual subject to it. We took that definition and decided to see exactly what the United States definition was, and we found that it is very similar. We compared it to the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and their definition states that it is an unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical harassments of a sexual nature. These definitions are very similar to what makes up sexual harassment. Finally, we decided to have a clear-cut definition that was out of a dictionary, and we decided to use Oxford Dictionary, and they define it as harassment, typically of a woman in a workplace or other professional or social situation, involving the making of an unwanted sexual advance or obscene remarks. After reading through many of the articles, we came to the conclusion of what the authors had defined sexual harassment as. First, we saw that power was a huge motivation for sexual harassment. For instance, in a workplace, we saw that someone of a higher power, like a boss, always was the perpetrator in the situation, and it was the person who was lower than them that was the one that was being harassed. We also found that the authors had said that it had nothing to do with attraction or friendship, and these situations were always verbal or physical. So verbal situations included comments of a sexual nature, emails, text messages, phone calls, things of that nature. And physical ways were things of the nature of hugging, kissing, cornering, or touching. The authors also explained that it was explicit or implicit, and some of the incidents were only happening once, and others were occurring multiple times in a time period. Also, from the authors, we found that there is an understanding that to identify sexual harassment, it is based on knowing how to define it and how to identify it. And based on that, then the relevance of the situation is evaluated and the intent is looked at, since that could be lost. The authors also state that there are many different types of sexual behaviors that can occur, some being making sexual jokes, lewd suggestions, obscene gestures, explicit sexual suggestions, unwanted physical contact of a sexual nature, incident exposure, indecent exposure, disturbing material exchange, and sexual assault. We also found that the authors believe that there are many different forms of sexual harassment, and that women are the ones that are targeted in a workplace. After we looked at many different authors looked at it, we decided to come up with our own definition of what sexual harassment is. To us, we believe that it is when a man or a woman is bullied in a sexual manner, either physically or verbally. We also see that it happens more often to women in a workplace, but we came to the conclusion that it can happen to men as well and at any location. Finally, we also said that it was an unwelcome behavior towards an individual that can be taken as aggressive and sexual. Once we figured out what sexual harassment was, we decided to see exactly what we know about sexual harassment. The first thing we found out, and that we know, is that sexual harassment is happening way too often in workplaces and educational institutions, and it is still a growing problem. And we know that 54% was found in the workplace. We also know that even though both men and women can both experience it, we see it more commonly among women. We found statistics that stated that most cases in sexual harassment are with women, 79%, and then 21% are men. We also know that many people sit in silence when it comes to sexual harassment because they do not want to accuse people without really knowing the facts. So they sit in silence until an investigation has taken place. We also know that over the past 3.5 decades, research has been taking place on the severity of these situations and likelihood of labeling it as sexual harassment. And as we know in any kind of report that is taken, there are some types of people that overhype it and overreport it, and in sexual harassment cases that is very common. So there's always false accusations that occur, but many times they're also not reported. So we know that the likelihood of someone actually reporting sexual harassments are lower, and not always are they always the truth.
So first I'll start off with questions researchers have asked. What is the actual definition of sexual harassment, such as what constitutes as it, and who decides what sexual harassment is? Being that there are numerous definitions for the term sexual harassment, it makes it difficult for researchers and law enforcement to take action on it. There are federal laws in place regarding sexual harassment. Depending on the severity of the harassment, the harasser may be given punishment ranging anywhere from a warning to never doing it again and to prison time. The United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has implemented rules and regulations for sexual harassment in the workplace, although many companies do have their own policies. Montclair State University, along with every other university in the United States, must follow the Title IX of the Education Amendment, stating that individuals, regardless of their sex, be allowed to participate in all activities in education. All public and private schools must comply with Title IX. It is not just enough to have the information in the school, but you have to have people who work together to implement it. The list of people on the right state everyone who works together in a group to make sure that Title X is working properly. Consequences. In the event of a sexual harassment is filed, the university must take action and the necessary steps in accordance to state and federal laws. Once investigated and handled, the state takes corrective action under the circumstance of proven sexual harassment. More questions would be, are there individuals who are more prone to harassment than others? And why is sexual harassment underreported and not spoken? Every 4 years, the NCVS, or the National Crime Victim Survey, is sent out to each home in the United States. The goal of this is to find crimes that have gone unreported and to collect statistics about each crime. Nearly every 98 seconds, someone in the United States experiences some sort of sexual violence. Sexual violence is the most underreported crime in the United States. Women age 18 to 24 who are college students are 3 times more likely than the generalized population of women to experience it. 18,900 women in the military have experienced sexual violence, and only 53% of these are reported. Out of 1,000 rapes, 994 perpetrators will be set free. That means that only 6 perpetrators will be convicted. Out of the 1,000 rapes reported, only 310 will, out of the 1,000 rapes, only 310 will be reported, and a staggering 57 will be arrested. So why not report it? With the statistics from the NCVS, it is no wonder victims continue to not report. When the NCVS asked why victims chose not to report it, 20% feared retaliation, 13% believed the police would not do anything, 8% believed it was not important enough, and 7% did not want the perpetrator to get involved, and 2% believed the police could not do anything, and 30% gave miscellaneous reasons. Recently, Alyssa Milano started a very important Twitter trend for sexual assault survivors to step up and share their stories, making them feel less alone. She tweeted, "If you have been sexually harassed or assaulted, write Me Too as a reply to this tweet." Celebrities and girls and women all around the world started to tweet back and hashtag Me Too. Even men started to get involved in tweeting Me Too. Sexual harassment in prison. An estimated 80,600 inmates experience sexual violence in prison. 60% of these are perpetrated by prison staff, which is illegal. Only about 8% of these are reported to correctional authorities. Research has looked into what factors predict the likelihood that victims. Based on a research that we found, victims were more likely to report it if the victim sustained a large injury, there was a greater use of force, if the victim knew the perpetrator, if the victims thought that they had a chance at winning they were believed, and those who felt they had a bigger support system.
The concept exists because today, society always views men as stronger and rules are different for men, from their pay to responsibilities. Even though anyone can harass someone else, it all comes down to the place of harassment occurring in what area, sometimes even work. The victim and perpetrator can be any gender, male or female. The perpetrator does not have to be of the opposite sex. Verbal theories that exist in harassment. Referring to a coworker and anyone outside of work as a hunk, girl, doll, babe, or honey can be forms of sexual harassment. Turning work into discussions to sexual topics as well. Telling inappropriate jokes or stories. Telling lies or spreading rumors about a person's personal sex life, or making sexual innuendos. Nonverbal sexual harassment. Staring at someone for a long period of time. Elevator eyes. That means if somebody's staring you up and down. Following the person. Giving personal gifts. Facial expressions. And also sexual gestures. Myths about sexual harassment. Only women can be harassed. A woman can't harass any woman, and men cannot be harassed by other men. Sexual harassment can only occur in a workplace. Only administrators or those in higher workplace can be a harasser. One person may feel harassed when the other does not. Men or women usually feel that they aren't harassing another person because of these theories. When they say, "she was asking for it," or "she didn't say no." Another theory is that boys will be boys. In other words, men sometimes think it's common to look at a woman and say some sexy comments to them because they think it's alright. Also, in reality, women can take it as being harassed and feeling uncomfortable.
Earlier, there is no universal definition for sexual harassment, as everyone has a different meaning for what they consider to be sexual harassment. We realize that every article ultimately describes sexual harassment as being any sort of unwanted or unwelcome behavior, including anything sexual, physical, non-physical, verbal, or nonverbal. We concluded that women are typically the victim in sexual harassment cases. Based on the article that Shannon stated earlier, it states that sexual harassment is a clear form of discrimination based on sex, a manifestation of unequal power between men and women. In a society where men are thought to be more superior than women, it's easier for a man to feel that they have that authority over women. Like Leo stated, society views men as a stronger individual and rules are quote-unquote different for men, giving them that power. With the statistics being that 9 out of 10 women in the United States have been harassed at least once in their lifetime, it is almost every single woman that walks past you in the street that has been sexually harassed in some sort of way. We also realize that although it is mostly common in women, the victim can be of any gender. In an article written by Jill Weinberg and Laura Nelson, they speak about the movie Horrible Bosses, where the main character, Jennifer Aniston, plays a dentist who harasses her dental assistant. She would do major things such as spray water on him and grab his crotch and much more, all while threatening to tell his fiancée that they had had sexual relations. They state throughout the article that if the roles were reversed, the male superior harassing a female subordinate, our interpretation of the events would completely change and it would be considered sexual harassment in a blink of an eye. The ultimate point on all of the articles discussed today, are that while it is true that it is mostly common that women are victims, anyone can be a victim of sexual harassment. As a whole, we need to be more aware and also educate ourselves and one another on the dangers and outcomes of sexual harassment in order to stop this from reoccurring. One individual can help educate the next to reduce the amount of people that are being sexually harassed. That brings us to the end of this presentation, and I hope you guys enjoyed.